Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. On behalf of Canada India Foundation, I wish you all a very happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year 2021. This is our first webinar of the new year. Friends, health and wellness has always been a key priority area for CIF, and our Ayurvedic speaker series and continued organization of Healthcare Forum is an endeavor towards that direction. Welcome to CIF's 8th session on Ayurveda. Friends, our last week's session on Ayurvedic management of hypertension has been postponed, and we'll be announcing a new date for that soon. Our expert speaker for today's session is Dr. Anupama Krishnan, an expert in management of patient safety and preventative healthcare ethics in research, sanitation, and hygiene management, yoga for asthma, health management through Ayurveda, and practical training on yoga. We have a very interesting topic on 6 tastes, importance and effects of taste on our body and emotions, and she will enlighten us. Welcome, Dr. Krishnan. We also have on a panel with us Mr. Ritesh Malik, National Convener for Canada India Foundation, Vaidya Harish Verma, President for the Canadian Ayurvedic Practitioner Association, and Vaidya Inderbir Chugh. Welcome to you all. Friends, this Ayurvedic lecture series is in partnership with Canadian Ayurvedic Practitioner Association and Vedic Spiritual Heritage Foundation. And now, please allow me to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Anupama Krishnan. She's an Associate Professor, Department of Swasthavrita Vaidya Ratnam PS Warrior Ayurveda College, Kottakkal, Kerala. She's having over 14 years of experience. She's an expert in conducting Ayurvedic workshop for international students since 2002 and worked as a resource person of training programs for the Department of Indian Medicine, University Duisburg, Essen, Germany. She did her PhD from Kerala University of Health Sciences and got fellowship in traditional medicine and integrative health, DHR CCIH. She worked as a nodal officer of COVID-19 coordination activity in VPSV Ayurveda College, Kottakkal. Thank you, Dr. Krishnan, for joining us, and over to you. Please unmute yourself, Doctor.
Thank you for the kind invitation, sir. Thank you. Okay. Now I'll share the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I hope the screen is visible, sir. Hello? Hello, is the screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. So may I start? Happy New Year to all, and welcome to the presentation. Warm greetings from VPSV Ayurveda College, Kottakkal. Myself, Anupama Krishnan. Om Shri Dhanvantare Namaha. Today's topic, Rasa the taste and its impact on the body and emotion, is highly relevant in the current scenario of the gripping pandemic. The pandemic-induced lockdown and confinement have magnified the poor diet, inadequate nutrition, and irregular eating habits. Further, the dietary habits have been hit and they have deteriorated by incruciating stress and the emotional turmoil. So it is actually logical to think that nutrition, optimum nutrition, can be used as a tool for restabilization. In this scenario, it is worthwhile to discuss the Ayurvedic food concepts which are dedicated to health promotion and disease prevention. Now, ahara or food in Ayurveda is considered as a cardinal feature of health spectrum. It is the epitome of sustainer of life, and in itself, it is a revered medicine. A mosaic of factors ranging from strength, intelligence, happiness, nourishment, and to the subtle elements of complexion, and voice clarity are influenced by food. It's interesting to note that as per Ayurveda, conducive, wholesome food begets health, and it can avert the use of medicines or treatment. Now, as per Ayurveda, we believe that food, ahara, is based on the taste or the rasa. As we all agree that eating is one of the life's greatest pleasure, rasa or the taste is an experiential sensation which occurs when a substance comes in contact with rasendriya or the tongue. Ayurveda considers rasa as a gateway for food enjoyment. Now, what does taste do? It does two categoric functions: evaluation of the toxicity and the nutrient value of the food so as to decide what has to be ingested, and subsequently prepare the body to metabolize the foods which are ingested. Now, taste combines with the smell and tactile sensation so that the flavors can be identified and the food items can be recognized as familiar or as novel. If the taste is familiar, well, then we can anticipate the metabolic consequences of the ingested food. If not, that is, if the taste is novel, then this can be used to identify the physiological outcome of ingestion. Apparently, when the outcome is positive, the taste will signal the pleasure and reward, both directly from the quality of taste itself and followed by metabolic consequences. Now, taste stimuli are released when the food is chewed and dissolved into the saliva, further pre-digested by oral enzymes such as amylase, lipase, etc. Carbohydrates are usually conceived as sweet. Salts are taken up as salty taste. Acids are expressed as sour, and toxic compounds are perceived as bitter taste. Interestingly, a set of compounds eliciting bitter taste is perhaps the largest contemplated diverse taste. Humans possess more than 25 functional bitter taste receptor genes. Now, going through a glimpse of history of taste. The ancient Chinese considered spiciness as a basic taste. In the West, Aristotle, who postulated a list of tastes, considered sweet and bitter as a basic taste. Now, till the last decade, modern physiology was accepting only 4 primary tastes. That is the sweet, sour, salt, and bitter. Lately, umami was accepted as a 5th basic taste, which was actually prevalent in China from the ancient times. Now, Ayurveda, after meticulous discussions, it was concluded that rasa or the taste are 6 in number based on their function and property. They are madhura, the sweet; amla, the sour; lavana, the salt; katu, the pungent; tikta, the bitter; kashaya, the astringent. So Ayurveda has a consensus on 6 tastes. Now, how do we taste? Humans taste with the edge or the dorsal surface of the tongue, soft palate, comprising of the gustatory epithelia. We do not taste with the lips, underside of the tongue, or the hard palate, or inside of the cheeks. However, children have more taste perception throughout the oral cavity than the adults. Now, the sense organ of taste perception is the tongue. And taste is a sensation which occurs when a substance kept in the mouth chemically reacts with the taste receptor cells within the taste buds. Now it is understood that the taste sensation comes from all areas of the tongue. Previously, it was thought that it is located in certain areas only. However, the different parts of the tongue have different taste sensitivities. Now, regarding the taste receptors also, it was initially thought that the taste receptors are occurring only in the tongue, or now it is not so. Now there is a growing evidence showing that the taste receptors are being discovered in different body parts. Now, coming to the Ayurvedic perspective of realization of the taste, which is known as Rasa Bodhanam, it is attributed to the moist medium of Bodhaka Kapha, which is a variant of Kapha, which is present in the Rasanendriya or the tongue. Now, this can be further understood by the phenomenon of taste transduction when the taste receptor cells convert the chemical energy into the action potential in the nerve cells. So what we're trying to tell is that the process of understanding and perception of taste was well understood and identified in Ayurveda, and now it is more and more being discovered. Now, this can be of great value for therapeutic use. Now, the gustotopic map tells us that each taste is identified by a unique set of neurons in the brain, which are discretely arranged. Now, this is in alliance with the Ayurvedic food concept of taste, which tells that taste is a sensation, is a unique sensation, which it creates on the tongue and the mind. So this relationship between the physical entity of taste and the psychological entity of the taste is also interesting. Now, coming to the formulation of the Shad Rasas. Rasa is formed by the Pancha Mahabhuta, or the 5 elements, which are the earth, water, fire, air, and space. Now, it's also very interesting to understand that these Pancha Mahabhutas are again consolidated into the 3 doshas. Now, depending upon the proportion of the 5 elements, the nature, the intensity, and the texture of the taste would differ. For example, the sweet taste is a combination of earth and water. Sour is formed by earth and fire. Salt is made up of water and fire. Pungent is made up of air and fire. Bitter is composed of air and space. Astringent is made up of air and earth. Now, the importance of this combination lies in the fact that the entire fabric of cellular processes, metabolic traits, psychological, pathological processes, biological rhythm, and seasonal variations, as per Ayurveda, is dependent on the combinations and permutations of Pancha Mahabhuta and Tridosha. Now, there is a simple formula for this. Suppose we can balance the diet, we are actually able to balance the Tridosha and thereby maintain the homeostasis of the body. So here diet can become a modifiable factor. This is the basis of prophylactic, preventive, and clinical nutrition of Ayurveda. This is exactly why this combination of the rasas, or the formation of rasa, is important. Now, coming to the properties of rasa, we can aggregate them as sweet, sour, and salt are uncourteous, pungent, bitter, and astringent are dry and rough. Now, again, the sweet, bitter, and astringent are basically saumya or mild, whereas the sour, salt, and pungent are agneya and sharp. We can see that there is a mathematical equation in their combinations. So basically, they are divided into uncourteous and dry. They're again divided into sharp and mild. Now we will just transverse through one rasa after the other. First, we'll go to the Madhura Rasa. Madhura Rasa is the one which is accustomed from birth. It is ideal for the aged, wounded, and the emaciated. It enhances the complexion, the strength of the body, increases breast milk, helps in reunion of the tissues. Basically, the sweet taste is anabolic in nature. It is not easily digestible, though. It helps in the life activities. Now, however, the overuse of the sweet taste can produce diseases arising from kapha and fat, lifestyle diseases such as obesity and diabetes. It can even cause malignant tumors. Now, the common examples would be ghee, butterfat, molasses, milk, sugarcane, honey, etc. Now, the sweet taste receptors are now being reported in numerous extragustatory tissues where they are connected with the satiety hormones and maintenance of the glucose homeostasis. Interestingly, an excess of sweet taste has been exaggeratedly researched upon, and they have found that obese patients have a tendency to take more amount of sugar-rich food because they do not reach the level of satisfaction. And this leads to increase of already gained weight and difficulty to lose weight. There are lots of work which is being related to obesity and cancer or malignancy. And we understand that the basic deviation from taste perception is the root cause of this. Now coming to the Amla Rasa or the sour. The sour taste is a digestive, cardiotonic, appetizer, hot in potency, but it is cold in touch. It mobilizes the vata downwards. However, its over impact can cause looseness of body, loss of strength. It can lead to blindness, giddiness. It increases body itching, spreading of the skin diseases. It can cause swellings. It can cause thirst and fever. The common examples are gooseberry, buttermilk, curd, mango, etc. I mean, the sour form of it. Now, we are all familiar with this inclination of pregnant women towards the sour taste. This is a body mechanism which activates the digestive enzymes, helps in absorption of iron and vitamin C, and also the optimum absorption of sodium and potassium ion, maintaining the homeostasis of blood. Now, excess use of Amla Rasa have been studied, and they are found to be associated with joint inflammation, stomatitis, halitosis, heartburns, and papules. Now, coming to the Lavana Rasa, it relieves rigidity, clears obstruction, it improves taste, increases digestive activity, causes sweating. It has got a penetrating power, but the over usage is related to vitiation of the blood, baldness, graying of hair, wrinkles, increases thirst, skin diseases, and the impact of poison. It can decrease the strength of the body and can account to infertility. The examples are different forms of salt. Now, there is a compelling literature which says that there is an undeniable relationship between over intake or continuous intake of dietary salt and osteoporosis and infertility. Now, this is again a very important factor. Although this is controversial, Ayurveda talks about the refrainment from continuous use of salt taste. Now, coming to the katu or the pungent. Pungent taste excites the tip of the tongue. It causes irritation and secretions of the nose, tongue, and throat. It leads to burning sensation in the cheek. It can cure throat diseases, allergic rashes, skin diseases. It has a capacity to dry up the greasiness, fat, and moisture from the body. It increases hunger, taste, digestion, and it is ideal for purification. However, the overindulgence in pungent taste can lead to thirst, depletion of the reproductive tissues, strength of the body. It can yield fainting, loss of consciousness. It can cause tremors, body pain, especially the back and the waist. Asafoetida, black pepper, and bile of animals are considered as katu. Now, the tikta or the bitter. By nature, it is not tasty, but it can cure anorexia. That is the paradox part of it. It can cure worms. It is ideal for fever, thirst, loss of consciousness. It can be used for skin diseases and for mitigating toxins. It can make the perception of other taste difficult. This is exactly why when we consume medicines, after some time we are having difficulty in perceiving other taste. It dries up the moisture, fat, muscle, urine, and fecus, so that it can be used in reduction therapies. It cleanses the breast milk, throat, and mouth. So in fact, when we want to think about cleansing, we have to think more in terms of katu and tikta rasa. It is dry, cold, it is easily digested, but overuse of tikta rasa can lead to diseases of vata origin, which can be understood as neurological diseases, which can be understood as ortho diseases also, and it will lead to depletion of dhatu. What we need to understand is that the pungent, bitter, and astringent tastes are basically catabolic in nature. They have got very sharp actions, and they should be used in lesser amounts and in lesser frequencies. The examples of tikta rasa are sandalwood, neem, turmeric, etc. Now, there have been studies which tell that there is a discovery of bitter taste receptors in the mammalian testis and the lung tissue, and this is on the way for therapeutic usage. What we know about the taste is actually very little, and what we can explode is a galaxy. Now, coming to the kashaya or the astringent taste, it is a quality of inactivating the tongue. It causes obstruction. In fact, anything which has got a kashaya rasa can be used for causing obstruction. Not easily digestible. It cleans the blood though, healing of ulcer. It can dry up the moisture and fat. It will cause digestion of undigested food and flatulence. That is, if we consume more amount of food items and medicines of kashaya rasa, it is bound to cause constipation. The overuse will lead to status of food without digestion and subsequently pain in the heart region, thirst and emaciation. And it will lead to loss of virility. So ideally, the reproductive tissues have to be protected against these type of drugs and medicines. It will lead to constipation. Dates and lotus star conception in the long run leads to obstruction. So this is an example of kashaya rasa. I've tried to give a few examples of the commonly used articles and their rasas, because we are not going to find things in one single rasa. There will be combinations. For example, the black coffee is astringent and bitter. However, when we add sugar to it, it will become astringent, bitter, and sweet. And when we add milk to it, it will be bitter and astringent. Then we will have a tinge of sweet also. If it is milk and sugar, it will become sweet and astringent. Pickles are salty and pungent. That is exactly why we can see the other part, that they have an impact on the doshas also. Of course, there are many other factors which will decide how a particular substance, when intaken into the body, will act. But the thumb rule is that the effect of food on the body is dictated by the taste primarily, and the effect of medicine on the body is dictated by the potency or the virya. So if we are talking about food, our concentration ought to be more on the taste perception. Okay, coming down to the porridge, which is sweet in taste, therefore it will lead to increase of kapha. A few more example. We can see the example of dried fish, which is salty. Freshwater fish would be sweet. Seawater fish would be sweet and salt. Fish curry, for example, would be sour, pungent, salt and sweet. Fish fry would be bitter, salt and sweet. So this is how we can modify the various food items as our requirement for acting on the tridoshas. Now, if we summarize the action of Shad Rasas in the terms of functions as well, we can see that the Madhura Rasa, or the sweet taste, is basically a tonic because it is anabolic, most anabolic in fact. It is nutritive, anti-thirst depressant. So you can use it for nourishing therapies. Amla or the sour is a carminative and appetizer. It is a cardiac tonic, that it is pleasing. Something which is a cardiac tonic will be pleasing. And this component of pleasing is important in digestion. So appetizers and nervine tonic. Lavana or the salt is a laxative, appetizer and digestive, but in small quantities. If it is in excess, it will act as emetic. For example, in Panchakarma, we try to give induce the vamana or the emesis by salt. And lavana is also a digestive and mild laxative. Katu or pungent is a carminative. It can be used as a bronchodilator and antihelminthic. That is exactly why we use tulsi leaves or the basilic leaves and the turmeric when we have got a cough. It is anti-inflammatory, anti-obesity, and anti-helminthic. So whenever we want to think in terms of deworming, we need to think in terms of drugs and food items which are more of Katu rasa. Tikta or bitter, it is also anti-helminthic and purgative. It can be used also as a thirst depressant. That is why we use it in Jwara Chikitsa or fever management. Kashaya or astringent, it is anti-inflammatory and anti-diarrheal. Okay. Now the psychological effect of Shad Rasa. Now this is the beauty of the Ayurvedic perception of rasa. It is not merely a nutrient value or the energy component. It has to be perceived at a physical, psychological platform. So sweet taste is very pleasant, increases cheerfulness. Sour is attributed to alertness of mind, increases attention. Salt enhances taste of food. Pungent is attributed to the penetrating effect. Bitter helps in withholding the mind and senses from objects of desire. And astringent brings about collected and organized effort. That is exactly why the 6 tastes are to be consumed in a tapering fraction. That is, a sweet, sour, salt, pungent, bitter, and astringent will be an inverted triangle where the staple foods will come under the sweet. And then as we go down, we can see the condiments are more of quality of pungent, bitter, and astringent, because each and every rasa is important in the diet in a very specific manner. Now, the factors influencing taste. Taste is influenced by smell, texture, temperature, and vision. We all know that decorated food enhances taste perception. Now, flavor is influenced by tactile, thermal, painful, and kinesthetic effect. The food's color can modify the food's flavor by influencing the gustatory qualities and the olfactory attributes of food. Now, the sense of taste and smell are intertwined in such a way that when the taste buds are looking out for the taste perception, the mucous membrane is looking out for the odorants. So what we understand is that together we perceive flavor. It's a combination of both taste and smell. Similar holds good true for taste and sound. High-pitched sound is assigned to sweetness, and low-pitched sound is inclined to bitterness. And this phenomenon of the taste-sound association is demonstrated when seafood is served in restaurants with a background of ocean waves or wave sound, because this will help in easy absorption. Now, coming to the rasa and mind part, people in the positive mood are more sensitive to sweet, and people in negative emotions are more sensitive to sour taste. This is usually due to the hormonal influence of serotonin. Now, when evaluation was done, that is, the evaluation of taste sensation was done after giving a mental task and mental stress, it was seen that the perceived duration of bitter, sour, and sweet taste seemed to be shortened. It is also remarkable to note that the anxiety can make people less sensitive to bitter and salty taste. Now, coming to this Ayurvedic concept of food-mind subtle relationship. Ayurveda has always given paramount importance to this subtle, unique relationship, because the purity of food influences purity of mind. The nature, composition, texture of food can influence various states of mind. It can be the sattvic contented state, the agitated, excited, but agonizing state of rajas, the ignorant, lethargic state of tamas. In all the 3 states of the mind, food has an impact. In fact, food can become a cause of the sattvic, rajasic, and sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic states of mind can affect the food we consume. So they have a dual relationship. The sattvic food, the sattvic stage of mind, which is a experience or witnessed by a spiritual high sense of hygiene and virtuousness and intelligence. In such a state of mind, food habit is a reflection of one's personality. So what we consume is based on the intelligence, virtuous intelligence of discrimination, and the food selection is not based on craving. So in fact, there is a clear discrimination between what is good, that is what is hidam for me, and what is not good for me. So in such a condition, the food taken comprises of milk, ghee, butter, wheat, barley, vegetables, fruits, gooseberry, grapes, pomegranate, green gram. You can see that these are very sober food items, which will augment vitality, prolong life, attributes to mental strength, provides contentment, enhances pleasure, due pleasure. It is not overindulgence, by the way, and sustains the body because it is pleasing, enhancing. Sattvic food is a format of having food in a moderate amount, not too spicy, so that it is just enough to satisfy yourself. Now, the Satvik Ahara also comprises of the Nitya Sevani Ahara, or the daily consumable food items as per Ayurveda, which is again the same. That is the rice, green gram, milk, ghee, honey, pomegranate, gooseberry, grapes, water, etc. Now, the beauty of these food items is that they form a fine blend of balanced alkaline diet, which have the tendency to encounter nutritional deficiencies, and they will reduce the vulnerability to infections. In the Rajasic state of talkativeness, pride, anger, competing nature, the selection of food is influenced by taste satisfaction. It does not take into account the beneficiality of the food. So obviously there is an inclination for spicy food, fast food, fried food items, processed food. And the tamasic state of mind, which is witnessed as fear, lack of knowledge, sleepiness, clumsiness, laziness. Here, freshness of the food, taste of the food, good impact, bad impact, none of these are of concern. So here we find the morbid condition of consuming stale, tasteless, refused, leftover, and putrid food. Now, what we need to give focus is that a same food item, for example, a loaf of bread which is fresh, okay, blank maybe, it is actually sattvic. However, as extremely, you can make it very spicy, then it becomes rajasic. And if it is kept maybe frozen in unhygienic conditions and consumed, it becomes tamasic. So the point here is a change of a food pattern can be considered as deterioration in one's mental health, because the rajasic state of mind and tamasic state of mind are undesirable personality traits. And the food item can be converted into a sattvic food, a rajasic food, and tamasic food. So here we have got an intervention power. And this also can be used as a diagnosis and a prognosis tool also. Now, studies reveal that the Taste and Mental Health Association, it is understood that for optimum health, we need to incorporate mental health, we need to incorporate a wide range of food articles. And studies have also revealed that incompatible food, dirty food, unhygienic eating habits, disliked food, bad odor, and disgusting appearance of food can lead to mental ill health. Now, coming down to the rasa relationship between dosha, the body humors, dhatu, the body tissue, and the mala, the waste. Now, what we understand is that there are a few rasas which will help in the dhatu. Okay, one second. I've made a list which I can read out. Now, vada will pacify the sore. Vada is pacified by the sour, sweet, and salt taste. It is agitated by the pungent, bitter, and astringent. And reversely, it will be the opposite for the kapha, which will be pacified by the pungent, bitter, and astringent. And it will be aggravated by the sweet, sour, and salt. Now, coming to the pitta, pitta is pacified by the bitter, sweet, and astringent. However, it is aggravated by the pungent, sour, and salt. So here we can see that the rasas, the rasa which will pacify vata will actually agitate kapha, and vice versa. And coming to the body tissues, sweet, sour, and salt will supplement the body tissues, whereas pungent, bitter, and astringent will have a reduction action or catabolism on the body tissues. Waste enhancement, enhancing the removal of the waste, is done by sweet, sour, and salt. That is, when we want to talk about a laxative, they should have these qualities. However, excessive use of pungent, bitter, and astringent taste will lead to retention of the body waste. Now, coming to the relationship between rasa and prakriti. Prakriti, or the individual body constitution, is a unique concept of Ayurveda. It is an aggregate of the physical and the psychological traits. The food interaction with an organism's physiome is the foundation of prakriti-based prescriptions regarding food. We find here that the Vata Prakriti is benefited by the sweet, sour, and salt, because of course Vata is pacified by this. And the Pitta Prakriti is benefited by the sweet, astringent, bitter taste. Kapha Prakriti is benefited by the pungent, bitter, and astringent taste. Now, coming to the Ritucharya, now this becomes a macrocosmic element. Ritucharya is the observance of diet and regimen according to the change of seasons, so that one can beget the advantages of the changing season, and he's protected from the undesirable consequence of change of seasons. According to Ayurveda, there are 6 Ritu or seasons, which is Shishira, Vasanta, Grishma. Shishira, Vasanta, Grishma, Varsha, Sharat, Hemandam. That is winter, spring, summer, monsoon, autumn, and early winter. Now, the specific tastes are meant for certain seasons. For example, the sweet, sour, and salt is ideal in winter, early winter, and monsoon. Bitter, pungent, and astringent is ideal in spring. Sweet is beneficial in summer. Sweet, astringent, and bitter is ideal in autumn. Now, this taste compatibility in the season is based upon the doshic predominance. Now, I will try to give an algorithm. Here, we find that this is a Vata Prakriti part, and here we find the seasonal part. We find that the sweet, sour, and salt, which mitigates Vata, which is ideal for the Vata Prakriti, is prescribed again in the monsoon, which is the period of Vata aggravation. The sweet, bitter, and astringent, which mitigates the Pitta, which is ideal for the Pitta Prakriti, is predominantly mentioned or prescribed in the Sharat. That is the period of Pitta aggravation. Whereas the pungent, bitter, and astringent, which mitigate the Kapha, ideal for the Kapha Prakriti, is advocated in the spring, because it is the season of Kapha Kobha or Kapha agitation. So we find that this Vata Prakriti, Pitta Prakriti, and Kapha Prakriti can be used. This knowledge can be used in the seasons also. Now, this algorithm of Rasam is in alignment of the individual microcosmic level as well as the environmental macrocosmic part. Now, this is a radiant feature of Ayurveda. That is, we can link the individual. There is no disparity at the individual level and at the macrocosmic level. Now, Ayurveda says that ahara or food should comprise of the 6 tastes. We should avoid overuse of the taste, avoid single use of taste, both in quantity and duration. The order of consuming food as per rasa is also important. We should start the meal with the sweet. Then in the midway, it should be sour and salt, ending with pungent, bitter, and astringent. This takes into account the various stages of digestion, which are the Kapha, Pitta, and Vata predominant stage of digestion. Now, observance of diets, rules of dietetics are also important. Apart from these factors, if we need to have a proper taste perception. For example, food should be consumed only after the digestion of the previous meal, and that too in moderate quantity. Food should be consumed in the favorable place with good companionship. In fact, Ayurveda prohibits eating in unfavorable places and unfavorable companionship. When we have food, we should be equipped with accessories in a positive mood with optimum awareness. So it actually makes having food itself as a ritual, as a revered experience. Only then we will be able to perceive the taste of the food. Now, interestingly, the dinacharya or the daily regimen mentioned in Ayurveda, a few charya, that is, for example, dandathavanam, that is toothbrushing, jihva nirleganam is tongue scraping, gargling, and betel leaf chewing are considered as taste enhancing properties. So these are not only cleansing, they are not only meant for cleaning the body, they have a purpose on increasing the digest. That means when you brush the teeth, it is not just for cleaning the mouth, it actually has the activity till the end of the digestive canal. Now, Ayurveda puts forward principles of what not to eat, that is incompatible food. Regarding taste, the combination of sour and bitter, sour astringent, salt bitter, salt astringent are to be avoided. Continuous use of long pepper, salt, alkalis are prohibited because pungent and salt taste will cause graying of hair fall, premature graying, wrinkles in the skin, infertility. They are very harmful for the eyes, hair, and heart. There have been studies where we find that populations with premature graying of hair, it can be taken as a signal towards coronary artery disease. And in such populations, consumption of pungent and salt food has been found. Taste perversion is the deviation from normal taste. This can be temporary or permanent, and the reason could be deficiency, vitamin deficiency, and or it can be even due to malignancies. Dysgeusia is altered taste sensation, hypogeusia is reduced taste sensation, and ageusia is loss of taste. Now, taste perversion causes nasal air problems, sinus infections, tonsillitis, mouth dryness, gum and teeth disease, brain tumors, nasal polyps. It can be due to seasonal allergies or even due to head injuries, chemical exposures, nerve damage, medicines, prolonged smoking, radiation therapy. In the scenario of COVID, we are all aware of the taste perversion that was experienced. Taste perversion, loss of taste, and loss of smell, which was a very cardinal feature of this pandemic. Now, there's another phenomenon known as masking of the taste. That is, taste is masked by the use of spices, tastemakers, adulterants, and improper cooking. These have very serious implications on the health because food has to be consumed as food in its format. It cannot be consumed as a tablet. For that, we need to have a proper taste perception. A perversion of a taste can lead to improper digestion and assimilation. Neophobia. Why people are reluctant to eat novel foods? That's neophobia. Not because people believe that it's potentially dangerous. It is because people feel it is going to taste bad. So if we provide information regarding that the food will taste good, and giving small sample test doses of food will encourage people to reduce neophobia both in adult and children. But in case of children, what needs to be thought of is that telling a child that this particular food item, which is new, is a nutritional value, is very good, it is good for you, is not going to do a work. For a child, a food has to taste good. Now, this is very important from the clinical perspective, where even the medicines have to be sweet. Now, there have been massive researches which says that binge eating and drug addiction, both these phenomenon, share a common behavioral syndrome of craving and loss of control. Since similar mechanisms mediate food cravings and drug reward, taste preferences can play a central role. This is where we can link these treatment protocols. For example, opiate addiction is associated with appetite for sweets, and opiate withdrawal is eased by ice creams and chocolates. Now, taste discovery is a very active zone of research. Taste sensitivity in different regions of the tongue, acceptance of umami as the fifth taste, bitter taste sensitivity in different parts of the body and its variance in different human beings, bitter taste and other sweet taste receptors found in different parts of GI. These are all promising advances where we feel that in future the concept of Shat Rasa in Ayurveda will reach higher status. Now, coming to the conclusion, what we have understood and what we see around is that food is a most important part in health preservation, but it is the most manipulated part also, which is subjected to restrictions and relaxations, control and contempt. Because in Ayurveda, the health maintenance can start with ahara. Because it is manageable, it is manipulated. But still, it holds a very good tool as a modifiable health behavior. And our pathway for using food as a modifiable health behavior needs rasa. And the Ayurvedic knowledge, the excellence of Ayurvedic knowledge in rasa is based on centuries old experience and genuine experiments. So what we understand is that this knowledge of rasa can be explored and utilized for revival of the taste which the mankind needs. So I'm very grateful to Harish ji for introducing me to this session. He's a person who actually motivated. He has been mentoring me. Thank you very much, sir. And I am extremely grateful to the Canada India Foundation, the Canadian Ayurvedic Practitioners Association, and to my students, Dr. Sunita, Chaitra, Vani, and Shreya, for their help. Thank you. And these are a few works which I have been involved in. I've been working in the preventive and community medicine of part of Ayurveda. So I've written a book. Actually, I'm a co-author of a book on delicious, healthy Ayurvedic cooking. It is an Indo-French book. One part of it is in French, and the other one is on Swastavrata. That's for the academic purpose. Right now, we are planning on food and its taste perception. I hopefully we would be expecting its publication by the end of 21. So it's really great for ladies and gentlemen for your kind patience and hearing. Thank you. Thank you very much. May this new year bring peace and grace to us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Krishnan. Such a very, very inspiring and very fascinating presentation. And listening to your remarks that how this Ayurvedic diet can help in bringing the health promotion and disease prevention. Not only that, but all kind of your emotional health also, how you can bring to the optimum level. It's such a great. Thank you for joining us and giving us that presentation. And now I would like to invite Dr. Harish Verma and Dr. Chug for the Q&A session. Over to you, Dr. Verma.
Thank you, CG. And Dr. Anupama ji, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
It was an excellent presentation. You mentioned about sweet taste is a kapha aggravating.
Ji.
It aggravates kapha.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion about honey? Honey is sweet in taste.
Yes.
And generally we give as anti-kapha.
Yeah, because sir, in the post-digestion phase, it becomes katu or pungent.
But how a common man can know? Because from the taste, honey is used to decrease weight, used to decrease kapha in the body. And
yes.
Then, so what is it an exception or is it?
It is an exception, and I think it is a beauty of nature because honey is a food item which is advocated for a daily use also. So as for example, just imagine if we were asked to take a katu, a pungent food daily, it would have been really bad. Because honey is sweet and it has got the property of lekhana, that is the scraping tendency. That is why we can use it in cough conditions. It can scrape away the excess of moistness and greasiness in the body. At the same time, it will taste sweet in the mouth, but its action in the body is pungent. So honey can be, but there are many other speculations of honey. For example, honey, as you know, sir, is not supposed to be heated at all. Once it is heated, it becomes poisonous. But it is advocated in Vamana, that is in Panchakarma, when we have to make it, when we can use for therapeutic purposes, we can even heat honey. That is only for therapeutic purpose. For consuming as a food, honey is to be given without heating at all. There are many speculations regarding honey, but honey, the quality of honey is important, of course. Quality of honey is important. We cannot advocate for the synthetic honey. We have to be aware of the quality of honey, and honey in a small dose is advocated daily, but synthetic honey would be a problem, no doubt.
Okay. And secondly, you mentioned about astringent taste.
Exactly, sir.
It is catabolic in nature.
Yes.
And how about Arjuna? Generally, we recommend Arjuna bark, which is very astringent, as a cardiac tonic to give the muscle. So, is it an exception?
No, it is not an exception, sir, because Arjuna Arishta or Partha Arishta is mentioned. That is not. It is not taken as rasa in this perspective. What you are talking is on the pharmacological aspect. It is on the pharmacological aspect as a neurotonic. Arjuna Arishta does not comprise only of Arjuna acetus.
Okay.
And it is not because of the rasa there.
Okay.
It is a cardiotonic. It is a cardiotonic by nature. Here, basically, Kashaya Rasa has got a stambhana quality or an obstructive quality. When you consume astringent as a food item, it causes constriction.
Yeah. Yes.
It causes constriction.
Yes, yes. Yes. So the last question is from my side. You mentioned about incompatible taste.
Yeah.
Is there any research like you mentioned about how commonly we are doing mistake at our home? Can you suggest to viewers that what kind of incompatible? Can you highlight?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. The first thing that is what we do in incompatibilities, for example, when I think the worst part that we see of incompatibility is the buffet system.
Okay.
I think that is a classical example of incompatibility of rasas. If we start off from the buffet system, there is so much to select that you will be consuming all the taste in the wrong order, in the wrong quantity, and the wrong posture, because you are not supposed to stand and eat. Actually, you're supposed to sit at one place. The way of our food conception itself is absolute, zigzag when it comes to the buffet system. And for example, when we consume, for example, biryani, if you think of biryani, the not pulav, the biryani type, what we usually find is that it is a heterogeneous, heavily food stuff. It has got spice. Okay, that itself is heavy. And then we end up with an ice cream that is hot. After that, it comes with cold. And it has got all the, it becomes a heterogeneous food item, ending up with a food which is dense, cold, that is ice cream. So the digestion of the food is totally blocked. Ideally, we should have a lemon tea, but we will have ice cream. So this can be the common forms of incompatibilities that we can actually avoid.
Okay. Thank you. And over to Dr. Indravi.
I don't have much questions. She has already answered all those questions. And just adding to it, if you said like honey, when we take it is sweet in taste, but it is anti-kapha. I think the other property of honey, when you see it's warming. So when it is heating, it is more probably, more of a catabolic action, I will say in that regard. But although honey is a gift from God, when you take any kind of, the bitter, pungent, astringent, in case of childhood, in case of, so it's being working like a vehicle, I think so. So, and the warming effect does not cause anabolic action of the honey, I think so. But when you add it in the milk, it is just enhancing the property of the milk to give you the anabolic action. I think so, if it is Anupama ji is agreeing to it.
Yeah, so I think the quantity of honey is not to be consumed in larger amount. Very small amount. I think probably when what we mention in Ayurveda about honey and ghee, for example, when we see Achar Rasayana, we find only 2 food items. Achar Rasayana talks about basically only 2 food items. That means they can be consumed daily. Although there is a big list of food items, it consumes only milk and ghee, not honey. So that means as a food, we still have restrictions on honey. As you rightly said, sir, it should be in very small amount, and the combinations are very important. Because it has got a katu element of it, there is a chance, if it is added in a very small amount, very judiciously taken, it will not cause this catabolism.
And in most of the rasa preparations, if we use honey as a vehicle, as a anupan, like most of the bhasma, most of the rasa preparations, honey is used as anupan. What is the reason behind it?
You mean the rasa preparation, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know that we have got an anupan list of hot water, cold water, even alcohol is taken as anupan in certain conditions. Honey is given for one basic stuff because it has this. It does not have the yoga vahi property. I think what it has got is it can remove the distaste, and probably because rasa aushadis are ashugari, because they are the ones which have got a toxic element in them usually. So if it, maybe it must be for a cardiotonic activity also, because we have this practice of giving honey and ghee, though they should not be given in equal quantity. We have this ritual of giving honey, ghee and gold together from childhood, because it is a way of accustoming or making the child or the baby familiarized to this. It's a form of antidote, I believe. So if you give it in a very small amount, it must be acting as a protective nature, sir. A lot of research needs to be done. Interesting.
In West, actually, we have more of the food which is more of sweet and salty, and obesity is in an epidemic here. So as I think when more and more immigrants came from the Southeast Asia, we have added on more into it due to the taste and business. We would put up more of pungent, bitter, not astringent too much, but pungent and bitter taste has been added into it, like the salads and meat has been, tossed together to just make a balance. And eventually people are started liking that food as well, who they were never, who they have never tasted that pungent
Exactly.
and bitter taste. So it is eventually their liking is coming toward that, and the businesses are enhancing because of that as well. But if you see, you go to any Indian restaurant here, we have so many South Indian restaurants also. But if you look into the thali, and beautifully, I don't know if they know it, we all have the six taste in there,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
it's come to become a balanced diet, and you feel satisfied eating that food, and especially with your hands, not with the
Yeah. Even this chewing with the hand. I mean, maybe if time permits, I will give the example of we have this Sadhya in Kerala. We have this national festival of ours is Onam. We put the rice in the plantain उसमें banana leaf में. So in Bhav Prakasha, it is mentioned that this particular leaf itself is a digestive. And we start with rice, then you have the dal curry, and then ghee, because then you have this pyramid of rice, that is carbohydrate, then you have the pulse of the dal, which is protein, and then you have a lipid, that is the ghee, then followed by sambar. Actually sambar can be taken as a soup, and then you have this achar for digestion, and then you have sweet porridge. So after the sweet porridge, you will again have the achar, so that is kadu tikta kashaya, that it will digest, and the end will be with buttermilk. So you have the six taste, and when you get up after finishing your leaf, you will not feel heavy. That is the way we identify whether it is digested or not.
it's amazing, it's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, I think all the traditional foods have this tendency. They will always start with a sweet, and they will end with something that will be, for example, rasam. Rasam is a typical digestive. Dal is a typical protein part. So I think roti and dal is a beautiful combination of carbohydrate and protein.
you
थोड़ा
know
सा घी डाल दो तो
in
पक्का.
North Indian diet, it is entirely opposite. We take a lot of sweets afterward. I don't know why, but it is somehow there, and it's a fabric. I think so. It's a matter of research. Just by taking a right kind of food on the basis of Ayurvedic principles can change the whole world. I think so. The way we understand that impact on our life, there's no need of medicine at that time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. Anupamaji. And I
Okay,
want
ji.
to share one more information with the viewers, that in forthcoming lecture on lecture of Ayurveda series on 17th January, Dr. KSR Prasad-ji, who is a professor and head of Department of Panchkarma and ex-dean, will speak on importance of prophylactic use of Panchkarma procedures, that is 5 Ayurveda detox procedures, and management of mental stress and sleeplessness through Shirodhara therapy. It will be a very interesting session, and I request all of the viewers to participate again in this lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank
Over
you.
to Srishi.
Thank you so much, so very much. Ritesh, over to you for the concluding remarks and word of thanks.
Namaste and Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you very much, Professor Anupama Krishnanji, for your enlightening remarks on concept of taste, rasa, and importance and effects of taste on our body and emotions. We always read and heard Jaisa An Vaisa Man, but today we understood how even taste plays such a scientific role in our overall well-being. Heartfelt gratitude to Vaidya Indrabir Chukji and Vaidya Harish Verma ji for sparing time to join us from their busy schedule and moderate this Q&A session today. Special thanks to all our audience also for joining us virtually, and please share your feedback with us. A special thanks to Canadian Ayurvedic Practitioners Association, Vedic Spiritual Heritage Foundation, Consulate General of India, and all the media partners for our webinar speaker series, especially Channel Y for covering this program online. As Vaidya Harish Verma ji pointed out earlier, please stay in tune for our next Ayurvedic speaker series webinar on role of Ayurvedic detox procedures on Sunday, 17th January. Our expert speaker for this session would be Dr. KSR Prasad from India. Once again, on behalf of Canada India Foundation, I wish you a very happy and healthy 2021. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you. Good day and namaste.
Namaskar.